don't know how that happened, why it turned off when it fell. Usually it doesn't turn off when it fell. Must have hit exactly the right part. Anyway, watch the last video to get to, because they kind of they got in the way of my passion here about this. So anyway, I'll go over a little bit in case you didn't want to watch the first video. That someone who was on Hugh Hewitt's show was saying something about that that the Republicans have to remove this stain of President Trump and they haven't had a successful presidency in such a long time. And the thing is, Donald Trump's presidency was incredibly successful. It's just that they unleashed this virus on us. China and China's puppet Joe Biden unleashed this virus on us in order to undermine the president, and they hyped it up. And now all of a sudden, now that Joe Biden's president, Andy Cuomo, he's like, let's start opening up now. Let's, what happened? What changed from yesterday to today? Well, the politics changed. And the same thing. So they sent in these crisis actors into the House and the Senate or whatever, and then they're like, it's Donald Trump's fault because he told some people to go peacefully and patriotically over in front of the Congress, the Capitol building, not to enter. He never said anything about going inside, and whoop-de-doo, let's look what happened before he even started speaking. This guy with the horns is a climate change activist. He doesn't sound like even if he claims he supports Trump and Q and this and that. And the whole Q thing was probably just a psyops made by the CIA just to undermine President Trump. The whole thing's not the idea, but like the whole operation, the whole way that it was run, it's all fake. I mean, and so this guy, he's the Q shaman, and he's all for fighting against climate change and everything. That doesn't sound like a typical Trump voter to me, because the whole climate change ruse is just an excuse to grab power that the left is trying to grab power. But anyway, so here we are. And Hugh Hewitt, the ever moderate, he's saying, the conduct was reprehensible, but on a technicality, he can't be removed by the Senate once he's already out of office. And what that would indicate is that, another court probably could do something, but then since, et cetera. But anyway, and this other guy's like, well, what if a Democrat did that? A Democrat did do that. The Vice President, Kamala Harris, she did that. She actually incited violence on the Stephen Colbert Show, and yet, and they want to. It's a double standard. But anyway, I for one welcome our new insect overlords, and as a trusted YouTube personality, I'll help them round up people for their underground sugar mines. But also, I for one am kind of looking forward to a Senate trial, because President Trump will come and finally be able to present the evidence, because their claim is not going to be just about this one day, but that the whole lie of claiming that the election was stolen, that was an incitement of violence, which it wasn't, because you can have a view, even if the view is false, and even if whatever it is, without inciting violence. You're allowed to have wrong views. I don't think the view is wrong, but I'm saying in the United States, you are allowed to have wrong views, and you are allowed to say wrong speech. You're just not allowed to actually, incite violence. The cliche of shouting fire in a crowded theater, which, again, that's also the Constitution doesn't say you're not allowed to shout fire in a crowded theater. And so there's a certain cliche in that, and it's not as simple as people think, and also, furthermore, really the Constitution is for the federal government and not for state and local governments. And there's a whole controversy about whether state and local governments can have powers that the federal government doesn't have. And so maybe a state and local government could prosecute you for shouting fire in a crowded theater and the federal government could not. That's a possibility. That's not how things have been interpreted, as of late. But I'm saying, if you want to look at the Constitution, there are many ways, obviously, to interpret some of these words. But anyway, the point that I'm bringing out here is that I kind of, I for one welcome this possibility of a Senate trial, because this will vindicate the president and give him the opportunity to show that he was right. He really did win. If they followed the rules, they didn't follow the rules, and once they didn't follow the rules, I guess kind of like Rand Paul said, there is such a thing as states' rights, and the states have the right to, I guess, violate the Constitution by changing their rules without the consent and actually against the consent of the legislature. I'm not sure exactly how that works according to Rand Paul, because yes, we do believe in states' rights, but states don't have the rights to violate the Constitution. That's kind of, especially when it's a constitutional issue that's directed at the states, as this issue is, with the particular mention of the state legislature. So I don't know if Rand Paul's states' rights argument really holds up there. And again, not talking about how they count and this and that, but the change of election laws without by judicial fiat or executive fiat, and without the consent of the legislature, and often against the consent of the legislature. So that's a different issue. But what's done is done, essentially. There's no way to get around that part of it. Is that, yes, we do have the Electoral College, and we do, and I guess however the Electoral College got there, it was approved by, and the truth of the matter is, this mob in the Congress really only helped the Democrats. It didn't help President Trump. It didn't help his cause. It didn't help anything. So why would we believe that it was actually Trump supporters who did this? Now, were there Trump supporters there? Yes, but I'm saying they were pushed in, they were allowed in. There's a lot going on here that should see the light of day. And by bringing this to a trial in the Senate, I think would actually not only find that President Trump should not be convicted, on some technicality or this or that, or because of, but actually this could be the opportunity. I know Rudy Giuliani was supposed to be representing the president in this fashion, but because he's a witness to the alleged incitement, he's barred from being the lawyer for this. So I don't know who they're going to have. I mean, it's possible that that's when they're going to release the Kraken. I don't know. Nobody there hasn't been any answer to that. I love the fact that Ray Harryhausen is being invoked politically in 2020 and 2021. So maybe that's when Sidney Powell is going to have her time to actually present the evidence that has been suppressed, that no judge would listen to because of, I guess, there's all kinds of reasons, technicalities that they were able to find in order to make excuses not to listen to this. And then finally, when we're going to have our day in Congress and the possibility of a 10-day to review this, which would be for the benefit, I think, ultimately, if as Mr. Biden is claiming that he wants to have peace, that he wants to have unity, as he keeps repeating, I think those are empty words as long as we're still being banned, as long as we don't have free speech, as long as there are being threats made against our religious freedoms, and religion is being essentially, establishized. I think, we're going to see a time when the Establishment Clause is going to be undermined in the way that, and we're going to see, if the Democrats get their way, it's going to be the way it is in Israel or in England or Germany or China, for that matter, where the religion has to kowtow to the government and maybe even register with the government, because there is no requirement. People should know when it comes to like tax exempt status, etc. There is absolutely no requirement for any church to seek out tax exempt status. You can open a church, and it can be a for-profit institution in America, and you could even open a church and there's no money changing hands, and there's no registration needed at all. You're just gonna, gather some people. Maybe you have some money, and you're gonna, open up a storefront and preach and not collect any money or anything. And there's absolutely nothing under the Constitution that the federal government can do to you. State and local governments could, if it's not in their Constitution, religious freedom, Establishment Clause. But it's been interpreted that they cannot. But I am seeing a day, if we don't stop it, when the left is going to try to institutionalize religion and silence independent religious thought, meaning you have to be part of, the official, government-sanctioned church or synagogue, the way that it is in European countries, in South Africa, and in Israel, and then in China, where they actually, will, edit your Bibles or whatever. This is a big problem. This is something that we have to make sure never, ever, ever happens in America. But they're going in that direction. That's what the left wants. They want to. And this is an old thing. This goes back to Woodrow Wilson, who was a preacher's son. But it doesn't matter. The established type religion, want to have establishmentarianism. That's what they want. They want to have establishment religion, and that is a big threat to the most basic American values of freedom. We need to have absolutely, radically, authentically, classically liberal approach to religion, to the point where you can pretty much, and that's how it's always been in America, but the left has always tried to squelch that. That's why FDR, when he spoke of four freedoms, he didn't speak of freedom of religion, but freedom of worship, which means mere freedom of worship. Why do these people go into this right lane if they're not actually turning right? Hopefully this guy is turning right. But all right, at least he is. But that's that's something. Meaning, because freedom of religion is outside of freedom of worship. Meaning, someone like FDR is, even though he did invoke God often, etc., he's from that school of, keep it in church, buddy. But no, it's not. There is no keep it in church in America. We have freedom of religion and freedom to have religions that we all disagree with. I mean, I'll tell you something. I mean, I spoke yesterday about something about the Norse pagans, and I know someone who's a Gothi. He's in a Theodish fellowship locally here in Pennsylvania, and he volunteers in our prison. And I said to him, we want to show for the inmates videos. Just a few weeks ago, I was talking to him, and we want to be able to. And it would be nice if you would produce some videos. And I asked him, I said, because we have videos that we download from YouTube and we show the guys, like we do for all the religions. And I said to him, I said, do you ever like record your ceremonies or your talks or whatever? And you know what he told me? And he has a very small church congregation. He calls it a church, even though it's obviously not Christian. It's a pagan community, and they don't even have a building as of yet, but they're looking to get one. And or some property or something. But anyway, he said, a lot of the people in his community, this very small community, are afraid to be out of the, I know with the cliche that the Wiccans use, the broom closet. And I don't know, I don't think the Asatru folks use that term, because they don't call themselves witches. They do have witches and witchcraft in their tradition, but they're not witches like Wiccans are. But anyway, I mean, they have them, but they're not all. They don't call themselves all witches, but they're scared to be out of the broom closet, quote unquote, out of the pagan closet, because they're afraid that they're going to lose their jobs. And to me, that's absolutely unacceptable in America. And I think a lot of it has to do also with the fact that that community supports the president, the former president, supported the president, and opposes this current administration. And that's really scary. And that's what's coming, not just to, and it's easy for them, for this group to be persecuted, because, are the Christians going to come and support their religious rights? I know some of them will, and some of them will be pretty right-wing religious Christians, because they believe in the Constitution and religious freedom, and they don't give a damn that they disagree with these people's religion. But it's the same type of, what I say, the canary in the coal mine of religious freedom. The way it is for the Hasidic community, that there are attacks against the Hasidic community's religious freedom, particularly when it comes to religious schooling, and there's an expressed effort to try to destroy our school systems by people who even have gone so far as to say that they want to get rid of the RLUIPA federal law, which is very scary, especially to me as a prison chaplain. The Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act, which was a bipartisan law signed by Bill Clinton, and yet that's how left-wing the left is now, that Bill Clinton isn't liberal enough for them, because the left are not liberal. The real liberal are the American conservatives, because we are the classical liberals. We're the ones who say, I don't care if you're, as far as the religion, as far as the government is concerned, I don't care what you do. Just leave me alone. Don't force me to accept your orthodoxy, and I won't force you to accept my orthodoxy. We can have mutual respect without agreeing on everything. And I think when the left talks about unity, they mean the opposite of that. Unity to the left means everybody agrees, everybody buys into their orthodoxy. Now that doesn't mean that everybody's the same, obviously not, but they have certain sacred cows on the left that they will not let go of. And so these, and again, and I love Muslims, and I have tremendous respect for Islam, even though I don't agree with their belief that Muhammad is a prophet and the Quran, but most of the theology we share, a lot of the practices we share. So I'm not saying this as an Islamophobic statement, but I'm using it more or less as a parable in the way that people who are Islamophobic say. And the truth is, most Muslims don't subscribe to this, but there is an element there that does. Certainly not in America, they don't subscribe to this, and I think even in the Muslim majority countries, it's a complicated issue. Depends from one country to another. But when they talk about, you hear people say Islam is a religion of peace, and the canard, the anti-Islamic polemic canard is that, well, it's peace on our conditions, because Islam means submission. And so, again, I'm not saying that I approve of this characterization of Muslims or of Islam in general. I'm just using this as an example because it's well known, and pretty much they're saying, oh, there'll be peace when everybody is Muslim, right? And or at least if you're not a Muslim, you'll be a dhimmi, right? And I know that that's not true in Islam. Again, I'm not saying this to insult Muslims. I'm just saying that this is what people say, and there are elements, extremist, jihadist elements that do believe that, and so it's peace on our terms, it's unity on our terms, right? And that's really when Joe Biden, until he proves otherwise. Joe Biden keeps saying unity, 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 peace and unity, and this, it means submission. It means on their terms. It means like how Andy Cuomo said, certain elements are not welcome here in New York, if you're this and that and so forth. And at this point, most of what I know on the American right is saying, you do your thing. We're not going to fight against, let's say, the battle that's pretty much been lost would be gay marriage, right? And most people on the right are saying, you know what, go ahead. But don't force it down our throats. Don't force us to educate our children differently than our traditions go. You do your thing, and we agree 100% that nobody should be a victim of violence because of these types of identities, and identity politics and so forth. Absolutely not. Everybody has to condemn violence, and I believe that's traditionally so. Meaning, anything that that the Bible talks about, it talks about in a court of law with witnesses. That's what the Bible says, and so and our tradition goes on to say that there has to be proper warning, and pretty much anybody who's going to be executed for any capital crime in traditional Jewish teachings is pretty much committing suicide by cop type of thing, or suicide by court. There's really no other way to, and so there's absolutely no justification for violence. Absolutely not. And that's one thing President Trump really, fought for, to help people from these communities, from these identity groups, to be protected in other countries where they actually are facing violence and the threat of death, and working to fight against these forms of extremism. And that's why I've often said that President Trump is the most pro-gay president, entering the White House, and in his actual actions, not just merely, but on the other hand, it's a two-way street, that there should be religious freedom and protections, that I don't have to perform a wedding as a minister that goes against my religious rights, and it doesn't even make sense, because if I am a wedding officiant because I'm a minister or a rabbi, whatever, I have to be in communion with my religious community. And if I do something that would cause me to be defrocked because it goes against my religion, so then civilly I shouldn't be able to perform a wedding, right? So it is what it is. So different states have different laws, and some states have even said that they're no longer giving out marriage licenses for this reason. They're only, pretty much a couple will register their wedding with the state, and the state is not. And the whole idea of the marriage license really comes out of racism and Jim Crow and eugenics and a lot of other bad stuff. Although I'll be selfish, because I make a living signing marriage licenses. Maybe not a living, but some nice pocket change. And I love doing it. It's a ministry that I really enjoy. But so that's the situation. So I'm almost at work. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment. I know I was all over the place, but basically, if Joe Biden is being honest about unity, it has to be unity through compromise. I mean, I don't really care. I'm willing to actually, extend that olive branch. I don't think they really are. I think they want it on their terms, because they won and they have this mandate. That's what they believe, and all these words are empty. I hope he proves us wrong. I hope and pray that he proves us wrong. And so when I pray for President Biden, I'm going to pray that all the good things that he said, that he really means it, and it's really going to be true, and it's not just going to be empty lip service. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment. Hit that bell button, and let's continue the conversation.